يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا رب وما تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل: يا رب أتأذن أن أحبط لي الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فحبت الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يكرمك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيعا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تعذر لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبيه: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبيه: يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي: رسول الله يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله حما، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. باركت الفاتحة.
Sayyid, Husainoko, my elders, brothers, and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, I would like to wish you all Eid Mubarak on this very special night. Just a quick reminder, we will be having our usual Thursday night program at 7:45 p.m. Right here in Imam Barga. Also, you're all requested to remember all of our marhumin to the Surah Fatiha. There are also members of our community here and elsewhere who are not feeling well. If you could please all recite Dua Shafa to grant them a quick and early recovery. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على. With that, if we can welcome Sayyid with the loud salawat, Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad salawat.
بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. My respected elders, my brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kushali Mubarak, Milad Mubarak. We celebrate tonight a very auspicious occasion, the birth anniversary of Lady Zainab, daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhim as-salam. And in this very auspicious birth anniversary, we send our heartfelt congratulations to the Imam of our time, Al-Hujjat al-Mahdi, and we beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten His glorious reappearance and to keep us all among those who will be of His devout and firm and sincere companions, insha'Allah. I want to begin this lecture by highlighting a very important verse that relates to Sayidah Zainab alayhi salam. Of course, I am not exaggerating if I say that the entire Quran relates to Ahlul Bayt and relates to those who follow the path of the Ahlul Bayt, like Sayidah Zainab alayhi salam. But we're highlighting aspects. The least we can say about the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is that they have embodied the entire Quran in all aspects of their lives. That is the least that we can say with the limited knowledge that we have about them, because what we know about them is very little. It's a drop in the ocean. And again, this is not to be poetry. This is the reality. This is the reality that our ulama have arrived at after years and years of study and research. They reached the conclusion that we don't know Ahlul Bayt. What we know is very little. Hence, those that accuse us of being exaggerators and mughaleen, we say for you to exaggerate, you need to first know the person who you're exaggerating. Exaggeration doesn't exist within our circles. Yes, given divine qualities to the Ahlul Bayt that are specific to Allah, that is outside of the discussion. But when you mention their greatness and their fada'il, when you say that they are the walking Quran, and someone pauses for a second and says, hold on, this is too much, this is an exaggeration, say we haven't understood them yet to exaggerate their status and to exaggerate their noble characters. Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih, is described in a very short verse filled with eloquence, with no exaggeration by Allah, who does not exaggerate. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Hakim, He is wise. He places everything exactly where it belongs. He says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Azim. You know, He could have chose Rafi', high. He could have chose Nabil, noble. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could have said Hasan, khuluq Hasan, good akhlaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opted out from all this and He chose Azim, great. If Allah knew a word in the Arabic language, of course, Allah can create words that are more strong, but Allah is speaking to us with the language that we understand. If Allah knew that the Arabs understood a word more powerful than Azim, He would have used it to describe the khuluq and the ethics of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. The verse that I want to highlight tonight is قوله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. How is this verse related to our Sayidah Zainab alayhi salam? We know that Sayyida Zainab played multiple roles throughout her life. Among them, the role that stood out the most, which we all read about and hear about on the minbar related to Karbala, was that of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy an al-munkar. She was alongside her brother Al-Hussein alayhi salam, who was the champion and pioneer of this noble obligation. He's the one that said, ما خرجت أشرا ولا بطرا ولا ظالما ولا مفسدا. I have not left for all these reasons to create havoc or to create mischief. Rather, خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي, to reform the ummah by doing what? أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. I want to enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. And this duty, specifically the duty of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar with respect to Sayyida Zainab, began after Karbala. And it manifested in the most toughest and hardest of circumstances. In the courtyard, in the palace of tyranny, Sayyida Zainab stood up and exercised this very noble duty. Al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy an al-munkar. Enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong, is not just an obligation. No, it is a pillar that all the obligations in Islam rest upon. It is a preserving obligation. For without al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, we cannot ensure that the sharia of Allah, the divine code of law, would be implemented in society. And unfortunately, this duty that is two duties in one, al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, is often neglected in society. And I am talking universally here. Often neglected and marginalized and undervalued, as if it is something that is mustahab. There's a lot of negligence towards al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar. We say in our majalis that Imam Hussein sacrificed the most precious, including his own precious life, for the sake of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy an al-munkar. Yet, in our lives, we seem to see this as a very marginal obligation. In fact, for some people, it is not their duty. This is the duty of ulama. People take it further and say this is the duty of our imam. When he comes back, he will do it. It is not my duty to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. It's very unfortunate. I want to discuss or explore al-amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar from three aspects. Number one, what is al-amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar? What is enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil, or enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong? Two, what is the duty of al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar in terms of where does it stand in terms of the Islamic rulings? Is it obligatory? And if it's obligatory, obviously it is. Is it obligatory on an individual level or on a collective level? And third, we want to identify the conditions that must be met for this duty to be obligatory upon the individual. These are three aspects or three discussions that I'll try to briefly discuss in this lecture after a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In simple words, enjoining what is right is commanding others. Now pay attention to the wording. Not recommending others, commanding others to do what is obligatory and forbidding others from doing what is forbidden, what is muharram. Which means that the ultimate goal here is to get people to follow the divine code of law, not by exercising force, but by exercising our capabilities, by our exercising our creativity in marketing these values in the best way that make them appealing to these people and motivates them to uphold these values. But not only that, in some cases, and this is of course subject to time and place, there needs to be a more serious approach to al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy, especially with respect to our families and children. You know, sometimes it's not enough to say, do this wajib, fi amanillah, have a good day, I have done my duty. No, sometimes you need to exercise different ways of pressure. Of course, in a positive sense I'm speaking here, I hope I'm not misunderstood. Not by force, but pressure in the sense that some of these people rely on us. You know, if my child relies on me in certain matters and has expectations, I can use these expectations to put pressure on them. Look, you want these expectations to be met by me, you're not meeting my expectations, which are Allah's expectations. If you don't do this, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, then don't expect this from me. That is putting some level of pressure. Again, this has to be assessed on an individual basis. I can't give you a general prescription that fits everyone. Some of these prescriptions may be counterproductive. They do the opposite effect. So that's not something I can say you can generalize and exercise wherever you go. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, in simple words, is to command others to implement and follow the teachings and the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it a individual obligation or a collective obligation? In essence, the amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar is a collective obligation. Wajibun kifai means that if a group of people carry it out and others listen to them and the goal and the purpose is achieved, then the rest of the people are absolved from the obligation. Similar to Salatul Mayyit. If one person handles it, the rest are absolved. But if no one does it, all of them would be at fault. It's a collective obligation. Collective obligation, wujub kifai. However, in certain cases, as we will explain, even though it's collective obligation, that doesn't mean that every individual is fully absolved from the duty with respect to the sinner. I'll explain that a little bit more. When others have said what they have said in order to carry out this duty, but there are people who continue to sin, assuming that my words would have no effect, I still have an obligation individually, and that is, number one, to condemn the act within myself and not to be pleased with it. That is something that is not obligatory on the basis of kifa'i. No, this is individually. Every single mu'min, every single Muslim needs to abhor the acts of injustice or acts of cruelty and anything that violates the commands of Allah, any act of disobedience. But also need to express that in a way to show their dissatisfaction. It may not be through words, it may be just through actions. Sometimes it is through just walking out. If you're sitting, for example, in a gathering, and in that gathering there are people who are, let's say, saying wrong things, humiliating a believer who's not present or present, and you cannot change the environment, and you do not have the capability to speak up, then the least that you can do is probably just walk out to show the dissatisfaction. That is not a collective obligation. This is an individual obligation. Every single individual needs to express their dissatisfaction, according to His Eminence Sayyid Sistani, based on obligatory precaution, even if you know that the other party will not even heed to what you say. Then the least you do is you express that you're just not happy with what they have done, the fact that they have committed a violation. It is sad to see that sometimes when violations happen against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not too bothered by it. But as soon as a violation happens against us, our own rules that we make, we get very frustrated. And this is a dangerous sign. I'm not going to tell you what this indicates, but it's a very dangerous indication. I have to reassess my iman if I have that feeling. If I put a rule in my home, a rule that I make, you got to come back by 10, and that rule is violated and I'm upset and I'm yelling. But when Allah's rules are being violated by my children, may Allah give them hidayah, that means I have to reassess my iman. Because I am more keen on my rules than Allah's rules. And I need to be more keen on Allah's rules than my human-made rules that may not even make sense, that may not be very important. What are the conditions of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar? There are 5 conditions that fuqaha mention. If these 5 conditions are met, then the person who's capable must enjoin, must command. Command, you find your ways of expressing that command. Simple way to command is to say, do it. The person that does not offer salah, you go to them and you say, brother, sister, you're not observing this wajib. You need to do it. It's wajib. Of course, if you have a better way to express it, again, to have the positive results, then by all means. But if someone says, look, I don't know, this is the only thing I know, as as the command approach, or this is haram and this is wajib. Of course, we have to keep a balance here when we do this. When exercising amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, we don't want to compromise the wajib, but at the same time, we don't want it to be counterproductive. You know, in some countries, they used to, in the name of amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, they used to, do things that make people hate the religion of Islam and run away from the religion of Islam. So we want to keep the balance. We want to keep the balance. As much as we do not compromise that value, as much as we want to exercise it in a very delicate manner that is productive and not counterproductive. So the first of these conditions is to know what is ma'ruf and to know what is munkar. Because some people assume that the act that is being committed is haram, and they go at the person. Yeah, you can't do this. This is not halal. Who says? I think here, ulama say you need to know something for sure to be haram before you go and condemn that act. Or something to be wajib. You didn't do this. I'll give you a very simple example. There are certain things that are mustahab when we do the dafn al-mayyit. They're mustahab. There are many mustahabbat. If I have to sit there and do all of them, we're going to be in the cemetery for 2 hours. Right? So we choose some of the very important ones. There's a short version of talqeen, there's a long version of talqeen. Even salatul janazah, there's a short version, there's a long version. What we do is the long version, by the way. But there's a shorter version. What ends up happening, and I've seen this in some communities, not here, alhamdulillah, elsewhere, is if a person misses some of these mustahabbat, you have this uncle who comes rushing, what is this? This was not done right. This mayyit is not buried in the right way. This is not done the right way. Not knowing that what he's doing actually is sinning, because he's accusing others of not fulfilling their duty, and they have already fulfilled their duty. Why? Ignorantly, he assumes that what they missed was wajib. So before we go to someone and say this is wajib and this is haram, we need to first make sure it is wajib or haram. And sometimes there are certain things that are a bit contested between fuqaha. Maybe he refers to a faqih, emulates a faqih that considers this to be permissible, while the faqih he referred to considers to be what? Haram, for example. So if he's doing it because his faqih says it's permissible, I can't go and attack that person. How dare you do this? This is haram because my faqih says so. He says, well, my faqih says otherwise. So we have to first identify that the person in question who we are commanding to do or to not do the act in question, we need to first be sure that this act is indeed wajib or indeed what's haram before we go to that person and before we say something. This is the first condition. The second condition is that we deem it probable that this person will take heed. If I go right now to an intersection in Minneapolis, in downtown, and I find a group of people, non-Muslims, standing outside of a bar, and they're drinking khamr or doing things that are not supposed to be done, and I go there and I say, please, respected citizens of this country, this is not permissible, not right. First thing they'll do is call the police if they didn't do something else to me before the police comes, right? They won't even consider 1% of what I said to be even worthy of consideration. They'll look at me as if I'm insane. I know for a fact they will not listen to me. So here, this condition is not met. I don't need to go and approach these people. But this condition is unfortunately abused sometimes. When I am lazy and I don't want to command my family members or those around me to do what is right and to avoid what is wrong, usually I default to this. They're not going to listen, so why should I go and say something and make my day bad and hear something? Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Inshallah, Allah will do hidayah. Maulana, you have some type of dua we can say. Inshallah, Allah will. Look, if these du'as worked like this, then the Anbiya would have just sat at home, Ya Allah, guide these people. Fi amanillah, khuda hafiz. No. There needs to be a lot of work to be done. Yes, dua is powerful, it's effective, but it's a factor. It's not the full cause or the full illah of hidayah. Instead of 950 years, poor Nuh, doing all the work day and night, and these people are not listening. His own son did not listen to him. His own wife stood against him. Could have said, Ya Allah, guide my wife, guide my son, please. It's not like that. There needs to be work that has to be done. So the second condition, after knowing what is wajib and what is haram, I need to know that this will be effective. If it's not effective, I don't have to do it. But His Eminence says and asserts, His Eminence is Sayyid Sistani and some other ulama, that based on obligatory precaution, even though you know this is not going to change anything, still express some level of dissatisfaction. I know if I tell a group of people that, look, you're not paying your khums. I know they're not paying their khums. They're my friends and they tell me. And if I go and tell them, they're not going to listen to me. If I say it 1,000,000 times, they're not going to listen to me. But to an extent, I need to show disapproval. I'm not happy with this. Sometimes maybe, they invite me to a gathering and I choose not to show up. I'm just not happy. You guys are insisting on a ma'siyah, on a sin, and you're not listening. I want to show you that I'm not happy. Perhaps showing them that you're not happy would have some level of impact later on. The third condition is that the wrongdoer has to be insisting on what they're doing. Somebody makes a mistake once in their lifetime. They accidentally made a mistake and they committed a sin. We can't come and attack them right away before we know they plan on insisting on it. Because maybe they've done it and they said, Astaghfirullah, what did I just do? I can't come and attack them. No, I have to know that this person is insisting, not that they have done it once and they'll never do it again. The fourth condition is that I need to know that the person who's engaged in this act does not have an excuse, a valid excuse. Some people have a valid excuse to consume certain things that are not permissible to be consumed by the average Muslim. Today, marijuana has become a prescription for some people, for some illnesses, under the supervision of the physician who's reliable and trusted. If it's like a last resort, so there's certain conditions. So if I come to know so and so is using this prescription, of course, under the supervision of the doctor, I can't go and say, this is haram. You could have used a different type of medicine. You're committing a sin, because that person may have asked their physician and they could not find any other option but this. So they have an excuse. Before I go to someone who has shaved their beard fully and say that you have committed a sin by shaving your beard, I need to first know maybe they have a serious skin issue. Some people have, this is not an excuse that some of us can start using going forward, but some people do have skin issues that if they leave hair grow for a little bit, it starts to cause them some type of unbearable hardship. Or some people resort to a faqih, although I don't know from the prominent fuqaha anyone that allows it, just to be clear. Most of them, if it's haram, or if it's haram based on obligatory precaution. But someone who says you are allowed to fully shave your beard, I haven't seen that from the fuqaha that are recognized. You bring me a faqih who lives somewhere and at some point of time has a different opinion, that is on them. But the mainstream do not allow this. And we have a hadith that speak in a very harsh tone in this regard. And I am just giving you the example, so I hope that we're not taking this with any sensitivities. This is the fourth condition. The fifth condition, my dears, is to be immune from harm. If I know that if I were to enjoin the good here or forbid the evil there, I will be harmed, the harm has to be weighed here. Harm could be a word of insult. You tell, for example, someone, this is haram, avoid it, and they come back and they attack you and they say things about you and your family, or go break your car. Or, for example, in certain places in the world, they will take you to prison if you exercise this duty. During the regime of Saddam, la'anahullah, no one could exercise this duty. No one can tell anybody, why aren't you praying, why aren't you keeping a beard? If the Ba'athis find out, they take you to jail. So there was a reason not to enjoin the ma'ruf, the right, and forbid the wrong in public settings. So you need to be immune from harm before you go and exercise it. If these 5 duties are not met, it's not wajib. When they are met, then it is wajib. And when it is wajib, if a group of people do it and it suffices, then you're absolved. They've done you a great favor. But if it's not working, then we are all at fault and we're not doing the duty that needs to be exercised. Especially with our family, especially with our close circles. Unfortunately, what is happening, my dears, is that there's a lot of sensitivity to this obligation. And I don't know how this can be ever fixed and addressed. Of course, when the Imam returns, everything will be fixed. But until then, we need to find ways to changing our understanding of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Al-Munkar. It is not meant to be an insult. Al-Mu'min mir'atul mu'min. The mu'min is the mirror to his brother or sister. When someone comes to you and says, you have been lacking on this, you need to work on this, they love you, they care about you, they want the best for you. There is no need for sensitivity. It is not about attacking. Because unfortunately, some people, when you come to them and you say that to them, they'll turn around and say, what about you? Look at yourself. Look who's talking, right? Well, it doesn't matter who's talking. What is being said, is it true or not? Even if the hypocrite comes and says what you're doing is wrong, if you know it's wrong, then it's wrong, irrespective of whether the hypocrite, if someone comes to you, pay attention to this. This person has never prayed in their life, never done roza or siyam in their life, and they find you, for example, delaying your salah. And they say, what are you doing? Delaying salah is haram. This is istighfar. You can't do that. You still need to take that serious. The first reaction is, look who's talking. This guy doesn't even offer salah. It doesn't matter. His duty, in addition to offering salah, is amr bil ma'ruf. He chose to do one of his duties and leave the other. And you cannot tell him, hey, look, fix yourself first. Why? Because in other words, you're implying that don't do amr bil ma'ruf anymore. So now you have assisted him in committing an additional sin. I've seen people in the month of Ramadan, they see some of our youngsters and youth who observe a fast, but they don't do salah. They get excited in the month of Ramadan. They do siyam, but they don't do salah the entire year. They tell them, what's the point of your siyam? Go eat. You're not praying. You're making this double sin for them. If they're observing a fast, at least they're observing a fast. Salah, inshallah, they'll be guided. You cannot, destroy to build. You need to build on what they have. If they're observing a fast, encourage them to also pray. But to say that because you're not praying, there is no point. And I heard once one of the respected speakers from another country, he got very emotional and very excited, commenting on some parts of the world, in the Muslim world, where hijab was being taken very lightly, unfortunately. And today this is a universal challenge for our sisters. Hijab is being taken very, very lightly in the communities, and it's becoming a norm, unfortunately. So he was very, emotionally excited. This is wrong, this is wrong. He says, this lady, that is not observing the correct hijab, might as well just take off the hijab, leave the faith. No, we don't want to go that far. That's not right. That's not right. She's doing a violation here, but we need to make sure she's observing the rest of her. I can't tell her, don't pray, don't fast, what's the point? No, I can't do that. We need to reduce people's sins, not add to them. Whatever they have, we need to preserve and add to it, not take away from it. Either you are Fatima to Zahra, or you need to go stand by Hind, the mother of Muawiyah. No. We're not saying we have gray areas. No. We're saying there is transitional stages. People are going through stages, and they're working on developing. Does that mean that while they're developing, I need to not say anything and be silent? No, I still need to speak, but understand that they are developing and they need your reminder so that they can get to where Allah wants them to get to. This duty of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahi al-munkar is so precious and so profound and so important. As I mentioned, the lady who we are celebrating tonight gave 2 of her children and saw her own brothers and loved ones. Did she give up after this massacre? No, she continued. And in Medina, one of the possibilities of her death, according to some opinions, is we don't know exactly how she died. Was it poison? Was it normal death? We don't know. But one of the possibilities is because she was exercising this duty in Medina. She was speaking to the women's circles, raising awareness about the Umayyads and their tyrannical behaviors and how they distorted Islam to the extent that the system could not bear the change in the work that she was doing. They decided to assassinate her. Ulama say when the munkar is so vast such that the religion would be at stake, then at that point that condition of no harm no longer applies. That's why they said when Imam Hussein alayhi salam went on and carried all the way knowing that he will be not just harmed, killed, him and his family, yet still he insisted. Why? They said because the munkar that was happening was going to jeopardize the entirety of Islam. And at that point, what is more important is Islam. Imam Hussein here gave sacrifice. So there are times that we will see where even though there is harm, we must endure that harm if the sin that is being committed poses a serious danger to our faith and to our religiosity. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us all and to guide us all and to keep us firm on the path of the Ahlul Bayt and to help us to exercise this noble duty in our lives to the best of our capability. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ala bayti Rasulillahi hubbukum fardun min Allahi fil Qur'an أنزله كفاكم من عظيم الشأن أنكم من لم يصلي عليكم لا صلاة له. الله.
أفضل السلام محمد وآل محمد अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। लगाते हैं दरी नारे, लगाते हैं दरी नारे, है चेहरे मुस्कुराते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। हमारी बंदगी मौला, हमारी ज़िंदगी मौला, नबी ने कह दिया मौला, जिसे बस है वही मौला, सिखाया मान अपनी लोरियों में या अली मौला। गदीरे कुम का किस्सा गदीरे कुम का किस्सा अपने बच्चों को सुनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। खुला करता है हज के दरमियाँ खुशियों का दरवाज़ा, तवाफ़े साहे होता झूमता है खाना-ए काबा, दिलों में अज़मत तौहीद लब पर या अली मौला, खुदा के घर अली पैदा, खुदा के घर अली पैदा हुए सबको बताते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। जो कहलाता है मोमिन करबला का है वो बाशिंदा, मजालिम के मुकाबिल खून से रहता है पाइंदा, अली पर जान देकर ये हमेशा हो गए जिंदा, शहीदों के तो चेहरे भी शहीदों के तो चेहरे भी कफन में मुस्कुराते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। कोई बूढ़ा भी आ जाए तो वो होकर जवां उठे, दिलों से नाराए हैदर ज़मीं तासमां उठे, मेरे हर शेर पर दिल से मुनाफिक के दुआ उठे, जो मुनकिर है अली के जो मुनकिर है अली के उनको लफ्ज़ों से जलाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं, अली के चाहने वाले खुशी ऐसे मनाते हैं। अफज़ल सलाम मुहम्मद वाल मुहम्मद।
और मुहम्मद व आल मुहम्मद सलावत। ख़त्म है फ़स्ल कमाम, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। ख़त्म हुए फ़स्ल कमा। The meaning of this is the time of silence is over. बोल रही है Zainab. Now Zainab is speaking. It's a poetic way of saying how Bibi Zainab spoke in the court of Yazid. So the time of silence is done. Now Bibi Zainab is going to speak, inshallah. ख़त्म है फ़स्ल कमाम, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। ख़त्म है फ़स्ल कमाम, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। कौन बोलेगा जहाँ, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। कौन बोलेगा जहाँ, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। और तीरो शमशीरो सिना हो के सितम के लश्कर। तीरो शमशीरो सिना हो के सितम के लश्कर। थक गई सबकी ज़बान, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। थक गई सबकी ज़बान, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। और चुन रहा है अदबे नहजे बलागा लफ्ज़े। चुन रहा है अदबे नहजे बलागा लफ्ज़े। अपने बाबा की ज़बान, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। अपने बाबा की ज़बान, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। और यज़ीद से बड़ी हार तेरी क्या होगी। ए यज़ीद से बड़ी हार तेरी क्या होगी। वो तेरा घर है जहाँ, बोल बोल रही है ज़ैनब, वो तेरा घर है जहाँ, बोल रही है ज़ैनब। बर मोहम्मद व आल मोहम्मद सलवात।
أفضل الصلاة محمد وآل محمد. يا راقبا نحو المدينة كاسدا، بلغ سلامي للنبي محمد، وقل السلام عليك يا علم الهدى، وعلى الوصي المجتبى والمرتضى، وعلى التقية والنقية فاطمي. يا محمد، يا أحمد، يا أبا الزهراء، يا أبا القاسم، يا أبا إبراهيم، جد الحسنين، أحمد يا محمد، أحمد يا محمد. إلهي ببیمار دشت بلا، جو بیمار ہو جلد پاوے شفا، الہی برائے امام زمان ہمیں حول محشر سے دے تو امان، قیامت میں مشحور رہو بعلی، اٹھے قبر سے کہتے ہم یا علی، خوشامہ خوشادی نو دنیا ایمان، کہ ہم جو علی حست مولا امام. افضل الصلاة محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين، ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.